Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Thursday. I've been listening to too many goblin sounds this morning. I just found out about this stupid goblin meme where people go like it's like, what the fuck have I stepped into in this world? Anyways, there are more important things to be getting into this morning, like very serious, very highly educated and intelligent magic internet money discussions, which we get into right now. As Bitcoin plays up to the top side of the medium-term time frame range was looking for yesterday, but there has been no range resolution. So I wanted to go over criteria for that, and then also a few things in the short-term time frame that are producing a bit of cautionary tales with current price action. Other than that, I wanted to once again point out that the sale is still going on for the next 7 days, it does look like. And most importantly with that, I want to make sure that if you are interested in any one of the programs, please watch the promotional videos that accompany any one of them, because they're explaining who they're for, who they're not for, what to expect essentially, and also, what is inside of them. Especially with the TA program and the options program, these are very, very long. They're big time commitments and also financial commitments. So I just want to make sure that, if you are considering jumping into one of those, you understand what you're getting into. All right, sweet. Let's just jump into it right now. Let's start off with Bitcoin on the short-term timeframes over here. Here is your test to 20,550 or so. And in the short-term timeframes, depending upon what timeframe you are using, I would be looking at 20,550 on a full-hour closing basis as be getting a range resolution with targets to the upside. Next stop likely somewhere around about 21,500 or so, which is essentially the highs that we saw from kind of the third week of June, that is. And of course, if you're using a very, very low term time frame, like an hourly, then 20,750 would be the number that I'd be looking for right here. Same sort of range resolution implications in that tail as well. Other than that, though, I should highlight here on the lower term timeframes, Bitcoin very obviously setting up for a move, not saying anything, crazy. It's like, Bitcoin, there's a move in. It's like, the next big move. It's like the next big trade. Anyways, yes, we do see very low BBWP on 3-hour timeframes and lower than that on CME. Even the 4-hour is kind of trending lower here as well. But the 3-hour and lower are starting to produce some bearish divergence, actually. 1, 2, 3 drives coming off the highs right here upon confirmation, which wouldn't be a death sentence in and of itself. And when we do go look at stochastic momentum, it actually will be aligning with that, with some short-term downside pressure, hourly coming down below 20,550. And I think even the 4-hour, let's just see where the 4-hour is at right now, is pivoted at 20,200, which Bitcoin is currently $100 above. So going to be very important where that one actually closes at the end of the next hour and 8 minutes and 2 seconds. So by the time that I post this video, you'll probably have clarity on that situation. But ultimately, if these things start to be confirmed alongside each other, bearish divergence plus stochastic momentum turning down, likely looking at a pullback first. So the question is, where do the pullback targets align with? Well, first and foremost, the 382 fib retracement coming in right around 19,850 or so. And then the big one for me is the 0.5 here, which is 19,600. If I am going to remain looking for short-term upside, or at least if I want to keep that sort of a opportunity open from a technical perspective, that level must hold. And I hate using that sort of terminology, but the reason why I say that is because when we go here to the 12-hour time frame, Bitcoin on CME is producing, or not producing, but potentially going to be putting in some hidden bearish divergence right here between the highs that we saw from 27th of June to where Bitcoin is at right now. And those 27th of June highs were when Bitcoin was trading about 21,500 or so. So that will be confirmed below 19,600. If that does happen, very likely looking at a move back down to the bottom side of the overall range, not just the short-term and medium-term time frame range, but the overall range, that being somewhere around 18.7. And of course, the same implications as before, if Bitcoin does break below there for the long term, that being any sort of a closure below about 18.6, 18.7-ish region, very, very likely looking at the next big dumpola party, some goblin mode action, probably down to 16.5 or 17,000 bucks. Until then, though, there are still several things on the higher term timeframes that do suggest that a balanced continuation is more likely despite a short-term pullback. So again, short-term, if Bitcoin pulls back to 19,850, that's fine. That's not anything, super concerning, even though I do think that Bitcoin's more likely to pull back down around here, or even, 20,000 for that matter. It's 19.6 where things really start to change around, and you could maybe even argue that it should be really like 19.7. Fair enough. On these time frames, not going to make much of a difference anyways. Now, the reason why I do say that Yes, the reason why I do say that higher term timeframes do still suggest that, statistically speaking, upside is more likely is due to this over here, the same thing that we've been looking at, or that at least I've been looking at now for weeks on end. And we are starting to see the daily stochastic momentum actually get some liftoff right here, also above the moving average that I put on it as well, which typically is a good indication when things are actually going to change around. It's not perfect, obviously. We had this iteration over here in early May, actually, where it just, that was like literally happening right before the dump law, but generally speaking, it does work quite well. So in this case, that would be another sort of tick off in the good category, if you will, for the blue laws. But the reason why I keep on focusing on this is because there's only been 7 other times in Bitcoin's history where we've seen the daily stochastic momentum get down to this level where my cursor is currently on, that green horizontal bar represented by the 9 level right here, basically. And of the 7 prior times, going all the way back throughout the full history of CME, there's been an average historical bounce of just under 31%, done over the course of about just over 14 days. So 14 days from the cross itself happening and getting ticked off would put us around, or put Bitcoin around, the end of this month, somewhere around there, 3rd, 4th week of July. And then, of course, as long as this criteria is met over here, the daily stochastic momentum will remain to the upside. Guess where it's pivoted at? 18,700. That is the bottom side of the daily range right now. Below there, momentum turns back down. You have a range resolution, you have continuation, you have another lower high, you have hidden bearish divergences all the way up to a 12 hour, maybe even a daily. Let's actually go check the daily. Oh, what do you fucking know? You'd have it on a daily as well. Alongside relatively low BBWP over here, and also on the HVP of stochastic volatility, this is still a corrective signal. So if I am looking for upside, do need still remain within the overall context of understanding that it's probably a corrective move. And the question is, how high does Bitcoin get first before, likely turning down again, maybe later this summer, depending upon, how soon that happens. So, that number is still very, 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 very important going onwards and forwards from here. Also, another thing that I think is just, it's kind of fun to talk about, obviously. And this is, neither here nor there as far as, as far as the analysis that I just did on the lower term timeframes, I think that's a lot more tangible, but this is, a little bit more fun, if you will, is this. Or actually, before we get into this, I should also denote that the weekly stochastic momentum is coming down, pretty heavily here. It's now pivoted at $23,000. That was, like well above 30 even just a couple weeks ago. So, that is a good sign long term, but long term on a weekly can still be months away, really. 5 days, same thing, 24,200 or so. And I think that's the same thing on spot price. Actually, spot price action is pivoted at 19.7. So that is still rather interesting. Again, I do think it's more likely to bounce first out of this region, and then if it's going to come down later, just from a statistical standpoint. That's all that I'm judging this off of. And then also, we do see global open interest over here. It did put in another little base over here, probably works its way up and onwards, but at the end of the day, I mean, this still very likely does base lower. To put in perspective, we're at the same levels that you saw before the last macro bear trap in July of last year, actually, when Bitcoin was trading at that $30,000 level. Now, obviously much lower, so there is a bit of a divergence there. But ultimately, if Bitcoin puts in a rally here and then falls over later, that probably makes more sense, especially gets people more interested. And from what I can gather on social media, it does seem like the more more general feeling in this market is downside. Everything's wrecked, and maybe that is true. Maybe I'm stuck in my own echo chambers here. But also, kind of another signal that I do think is rather interesting is the pi cycle low indicator. So this is the pi cycle low indicator, not the same thing as the pi cycle high indicator, although it is included on this indicator itself. But here's the thing. I completely discounted this indicator back last year, actually, when it fired off, which has actually accurately gotten all of the prior macro tops in Bitcoin's history. And, I did that much to my chagrin, obviously. So that was a bit of hubris right there. Should have heated up a bit more in terms of that. I was even talking about it on my channel, but I'm like, probably doesn't work out. Well, that's neither here nor there. I was certainly wrong about that, humbled by the market yet again. In this case, we actually do have some decent results for the long term in formulating the lows here. The thing with the lows, however, is that We only have two prior ones. You could argue that back on over here in 2011, 2012, we probably would have seen one as well, but the indicator price action just wasn't alive for enough time for it to really populate, accurate results back here. Obviously, the more history, the better. But for the past two cycles, yeah, it's actually been perfect on the lows, to be fair. And so when does the low actually get, when does it get play? Well, it's when the green and the yellow moving averages cross the red, and they both have to cross. So it's when the last one crosses the red. So obviously this one over here gets it, pretty much 1 week before the low actually. So, well, to be fair, not the best timing because it does go another 36% down. But in terms of timing, the actual time of the move, pretty damn good. This one actually gets like literally the low in 2018. And for right now, the reason why I'm bringing it up is that these moving averages are drawing very, very close to each other. If we go down to a daily, I would guess that this is probably a couple weeks away, maybe 3 weeks away at most, 2 weeks away, most likely 1 week away, best case scenario. So do keep an eye on that. I'm just curious to see for my own knowledge if it actually does work again, and it probably at the very least begets a nice bounce Ola on price action. So I think that's a good place to kind of leave off on this particular analysis. I want to once again put want to once again put a bit of focus on the funded accounts service that I'm kind of linking up with. So one of the guys in the cave who I've known for a long time now has basically created a service alongside a couple of his friends that basically will give traders funding if they can prove that they actually have, skills to make money. Like, obviously that makes fucking sense, right? And so there'll be a link in the description below. It's funded futures trading, and there's a discount that goes alongside of it as well. Also, should do my Bybit shill here, as they actually do have a pretty damn good thing going on right now where they offer you 0% on maker fees, meaning that you don't pay any fee on limit orders if you use the link in the description below. Of course, it is an affiliate link. You don't have to use it, but then you don't get the 0% limit order fees. So at the end of the day, that's a promotion that I actually quite like because I like to use it myself, so maybe a bit of selfishness there as well. Anyways, with that in mind, I'll be signing off. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.